We need to talk about ethical AI, which is critical if you want to succeed as a product person in today's times. What do I mean by ethical AI? Typically, what you will understand and see is that harnessing the power of generative AI with your job as a product person requires also that you navigate the risk at the same time. And there are several concerns that your peers and stakeholders will voice. So, first of all, what about protecting confidential information and data, particularly those from stakeholders? Second, how can you ensure the quality and the correctness of AI output? Do you have to 100% test and validate everything? That would probably diminish the return on investment you're facing. And thirdly, they by all means want to understand what your role as a product person in the future will be. Will you be managing the AI or what is going to be? Because there are other concerns associated with that. So let's have a deeper look. There are 5 key risks that you as a product person are facing when employing AI in your job. Trust. So presenting unvalidated AI work with all the repercussions, you name it, wrong sources, hallucinations, directing you in the wrong way, is a very efficient means, so to speak, to undermine your credibility with your stakeholders very quickly and probably permanently. Please remember, trust takes weeks, months to build, but only seconds to destroy, and this is a very effective means of doing so if you want to have the sarcastic version here. Confidentiality. If you're just using plain stakeholder or customer data in public AI tools, this may cause seriously problems at various levels, governance, compliance, trust, collaboration with stakeholders. Bias. Do you remember the old saying that as a product person, you should love your customers' problems, not your solution? Guess what? Generative AI is very helpful in actually supporting you in believing that your solution is the correct way forward. And you need to hedge your bets against it. Process. It's very easy to create good-looking content of all kinds in a relatively short period of time that somehow seems to support your product strategy. And this is particularly if you uncritically assume that everything you get from the AI is correct. It very easily pushes you towards this feature factory, and in this time it's a feature factory on steroids because you can produce so much more in the same period of time. So that's a critical issue because it undermines your efforts to collaboratively do and succeed in product discovery. And there might be a skill decline. If you solely rely on AI, it can erode over time your own strategic judgment and empathy with your user's problem, and this is all not a good idea. So, therefore, I suggest a pragmatic solution which comes down to 4 guardrails to help you succeed with AI in your role as a product person. So we're not talking about heavy bureaucracy here, but simple shared agreements. And those agreements cover 4 fields: data privacy and compliance, human value preservation, output validation, and transparent attribution. Let's have a look at every one of those. Data privacy and compliance. Your job is to protect sensitive product, customer, and stakeholder data. So my suggestion is that you actually lead a data classification exercise to label your available data, which is publicly available, which is only internally available and which by all means is restricted. So publicly available data you can also use in public AI tools. Internal data, well, you probably want to host an AI on your own instance. And restricted data, you never use that with any form of AI system. I also strongly recommend that you establish team rules for anonymizing internal data before you use it. It's not a good idea if you just ignore this fact, because most of the interesting patterns do not require names, for example. Which also is a good segue to the third point, which is that verify that your AI use complies with relevant regulations. So GDPR comes to mind, HIPAA in the US, or relatively new in the European Union, the EU AI Act, which significantly extends your responsibilities for data privacy and compliance. Guardrail number 2, human value preservations. What this is about is that you distinct between the part the AI is playing and the part that you, the human, is playing. So the AI is certainly great at creating first drafts, critique your concepts and ideas, generate data summaries and consistency checks. The AI is really good at these things. However, you as a product person have different responsibilities. Strategy, stakeholder relationships, empathy, understanding what your customers need and what they're willing to pay for. And in the end, making value-based decisions. So strictly distinguish these two areas and help everyone else understand that there are A, two areas, and B, who is responsible for what area. Guardrail number 3, output validation. Any form of AI-generated content can be flawed, biased, or incorrect. You may have heard numerous stories about hallucinations. Particularly funny, I find those where lawyers submit suggestions to court without checking made-up cases. I find this really funny. But you should not fall into the same trap. So, technically, it's really simple. As a product person, you are accountable for all the content in your product backlog and the adjacent data and document repositories. It's your job to make sure that it's correct, right? So from that perspective, maybe enforcing a sort of peer review protocol to validate output generated by AI is a good idea. And you do so by simply checking any AI created artifacts with primary sources. You validate them against existing documentation, so that's still aligned with that. And you may also confirm the suggestions with a subject matter expert. And by the way, the subject matter expert can be you or another team member in that respect. And finally, always cross-check AI-generated suggestions against user research results and product strategy. It would be highly negligible if you would avoid that. Guardrail number 4, transparent attribution. So, maintaining credibility and trust with your stakeholders is relatively simple if you adhere to a simple rule. Whenever you employ an AI in your work, make it public, be transparent about your process. Document your AI's contribution to internal records. For stakeholders, for example, consider labeling content in the way that drafted with AI assistance, validated by the product team. All of those little ideas, of all those little tasks, help to maintain your credibility and trust. Because never forget, trust is your most valuable asset and critical also from your career perspective. So don't put that at risk. Also, from time to time, it is helpful to take a contrarian view. So run some critical questions all the time, so to get more familiar with how to best balance the convenience AI provides us with iterative discovery and ultimately figuring out what is worth building, because that is what you're getting paid for. Ask yourself, does the inclusion of the AI in your process replace crucial team discussions? Because that is not what we want to have, by all means. Is it a problem that I'm automating away contact with my customers, with my stakeholders, that I'm slowly but steadily losing the empathy for their problems, for their needs? And is all of this leading to more collaboration within my team and with my stakeholders and my customers? Or are we just putting up a new feature factory, this time at on steroids at an accelerated rate? Now, your action plan. How to get going and make this happen, that you consider that you treat the involvement of any AI in your product work in an ethical way. So I suggest champion a data classification workshop with your team. You remember, public, internal, limited, restricted. You need to come up with some process how to identify what is okay to use and what's not okay to use, or what can only be used in certain circumstances. Also define and map how the humans interact with the AI. Make sure what is happening when. How does our peer review, for example, works out? Because this peer review process, checking on AI outputs, should become part of your definition of done. To ensure that results delivered by the AI are actually valid, based on what is available, what you have learned in the past, what documentation is available. And finally, I suggest that you add simple AI guidelines to your team charter or working agreement to help everyone understand, okay, this is how we see this. And as usual, this is not set in stone. Start with a version 1 regarding your AI guidelines, and then update it when necessary. So inspect, adapt also applies here. What are the benefits for you as a product leader from doing it this way? First of all, by automating routine tasks, by outsourcing those tasks to the AI, you can actually focus on the high value strategy issues and no longer get bogged down in analyzing data over and over again every single day. Make better data-informed decisions, because AI is really good at this. Particularly, they're good at analyzing large amounts of data that are messy and unstructured, something that would require a lot of work from your side. But we have a chapter on that too. It strengthens your credibility and trust with stakeholders if you are transparent about it, and if they understand that this is a structured way of dealing with it, not just a excited embracing of a new technology without thinking beyond the first level of excitement. And lastly, it's going to future-proof your role by actually leading in this human-AI collaboration and establishing yourself as an important part of that whole process. So, from my perspective, your mission is to deliver value responsibly, and leading your team in the ethical use of AI is now central to that mission. Any questions? Well, join the next QA session. Thank you.